Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. My brief was to find someone in Manchester who could tell a hospitality story, a personal story, and ideally someone who's come to the city. I think we're all, as Mancunians, kind of fascinated as to how people find our city and what they find when they get here. So that was the brief, and I think I've got the perfect person for you here today. It's Sandra Matorell, who is the founder and owner of Tast. So please say hello to Sandra.
Hello.
So Sandra, the first question that I always ask anyone in hospitality, because we know the kind of staffing issues, the problems getting people into the industry, how did you end up moving into hospitality? And is it seen differently in Spain and Catalonia? Because over here, I often hear stories that I struggled at school, I didn't do well, my careers teacher didn't know what to say, so I ended up in hospitality. How did you find it?
I think my story is a bit different. So I grew up in a little village by the coast, very touristic place, who is only 50 minutes from Barcelona, up to the north. And there's lots of fun hotels, touristic hotels. And I was, when I was around 7-8 years old, my parents took me to the inauguration, opening of a new resort hotel there. And I remember I walked into that hotel and it was exciting, it was a special event. And I arrived there and I was like, amazed by the surrounding. I thought it was like the coolest place in the world. It was such a beautiful hotel and you could see people having fun and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. So I think from this very early age, I decided this is what I want to do when I grow up. I want to work in hotels. So then when I went to university, I studied tourism. I knew I wanted to do tourism. I've done all the specializations more focused into the hotel business world. And I started working, obviously, being from this village where the touristic was very popular in summer. I was working during summer as an entertainer in these hotels, having lots of fun, surrounded by English people, because mainly was like, I would say 80% English people visiting there. And I thought it was so much fun. So then when I finished university, I decided I wanted to continue with the experience of the entertainment world because I really enjoyed it. But then my little village, it's only a seasonal station where the hotels are. And then I decided to move to Canary Islands, so I went to Lanzarote and lived there for 2.5 years to work full year, jumping on the stage, doing sports all day, and having the great time, working many hours, but it was really fun. And then while I was there, then one day my mom called me and said, I heard there's this really good chef who's looking for a director to open a restaurant in Japan. And I'm like, okay, that's not really what I, ever pictured to be in a restaurant. My focus was always.
That's a big jump as well.
That was a massive jump, yeah.
Japan, I think, in terms of its restaurant culture, can be quite insular, quite inward-looking. It's
I
a
think
big move to go across the world.
I think it was a big jump for many reasons. One, because I never really thought about the restaurant. My passion was always into more of the hotel kind of thing, and I was hoping one day to be an hotel manager. That was my dream. And then all of a sudden, I have this phone call. I was always on the side. I was always passionate about Japan. I studied Japanese when I was 15. I love languages, and I thought it was an interesting language to learn. Don't ask me why, but I really liked it, and I was lucky enough to visit Japan twice. When I finished my degree at university, I traveled for the whole summer on my own, just staying in different families, and I just loved it, the experience. So I was very passionate about Japan. So I think that's why my mom thought, she thought about Japan, but not really about the restaurant. And then when she told me, I was like, well, I have no experience whatsoever in restaurant. This is not what I study. I study more on the business side, not the operational side.
And what sort of restaurant as well? High-end?
It was
Michelin star?
It was a Michelin star restaurant.
Okay.
So then normally I think in life always you have sometimes the trains, we always have this train who's passing, by in front of you, and sometimes the train stops, the doors open, and you decide to go in or not. I'm the kind of person that always goes in and I will figure out what's going to go, so let's see where we go. So I jumped in with no experience in hospitality on the restaurant side, no experience on the Michelin side. The only thing I knew, it was like, I liked Japan. I knew a little bit of Japanese, only a little bit.
And how old were you at that point, still in?
25.
25.
I was 25.
Okay.
And then anyway, I just listened to my mom saying, she was more excited than me, like, yeah, you have to do it. Why don't you, do the interview? And I really went to the interview thinking, there's no way they're going to take me, because first of all, I have no experience. There's probably much more people who are more ready than me. So anyway, I traveled to Barcelona to meet the chef. Because at that time is when I was in the Canary Islands still. And I met with the chef, and after it was a very long interview, after 2 hours, she didn't say a word about a restaurant or food or anything. She's like, you're the person I'm looking for. And I'm like, really? And he said, yeah, you are the person I'm looking for. I said, but I have no experience, in restaurants. And I said, well, I don't believe in CVs, I believe in persons. I have the feeling you are the right person. And I'm like, okay. And I was really shocked. I did not really, expect that. And at that moment is when I decided to enter into the train.
And how long did you spend in Japan at the
3
restaurant?
years.
And am I right in saying that it was while you were out there that you met your husband?
That's correct.
So, and is it partly your husband's fault that you are now here in Manchester?
That's correct.
Okay. So just briefly touch on then how you came to go from Catalonia to the Canary Islands. We've done Japan, and then from Japan to Manchester. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So from Japan to Manchester, well, there's Barcelona in the middle.
Of course,
I am originally from Barcelona, and then I met my husband like 3 months before my ending period in Japan. I promised the executive chef that I would stay 3 years, not one more day. It's such a difficult country for women, for young people, for foreigners, and I had a great time. It was a great learning and very, very good experience. But if I just decided, 3 years was enough. So then he came as a guest to eat at the restaurant, and I met him there, and then we decided to stay connected when I came back to Barcelona. And then this is where, where we started dating. At that moment, when I came back to Barcelona, I went to work for a very little wine resort about an hour from Barcelona. Very beautiful place in the middle of the vineyards. And I was the F&B director there. So I carry on with the more of the restaurant side rather than the hotel side. And then the opportunity of coming to Manchester came for him, and I'm always ready with my luggage, so it was no much question.
So tell me about that though, because you had to be, or your husband had to be convinced to take the job to move to Manchester, and I think you probably had to be kind of convinced about Manchester as well. So when you first came over, was it traditionally kind of doing the raining thing, and what were your first impressions when you got to this city?
The first impression was not very good, to be honest. So at the time, that was 2012, and spring 2012, they're going, they're asking my husband to try to get this job. So they want to convince us, basically. So come for a weekend, come for a fun weekend. We're going to show you the city, and we're going to show you around. You'll see Manchester is such a vibrant city. That's 2012. It's not now. And you're like, okay. So we come for a weekend. It was March, which is spring. From Barcelona, you think, wow, this close, basically, nice weather. And then it was pouring rain. It was cold. It was like, it was grey. It was like, it felt like the middle of winter in Barcelona. And then they're showing, they really tried hard, that we had because the weather was so bad, we had a driver and he was driving us around to show us the city and this is this and this is that. And then I remembered also we're staying at the Lowry, and then we asked, where we can go for dinner, and then they said, oh yeah, you can go to Australasia or San Carlo. I said, all right, great. We asked someone else thinking, you come from a place where you have hundreds of places to go out, and the list of going out is never ending. And then we asked the driver and said, oh yeah, you can go to San Carlo in Australasia. And then, I don't know, we asked someone else, and oh yeah, San Carlo in Australasia. Like, what is this? I mean, it's Manchester, is, you're thinking it's quite, an important city. The capital of the north is like, there's only 2 restaurants that people are brave enough to recommend. And it was like, oh my God, this weather, no restaurants, because obviously we both like food very very much. I was like, there's no way we're coming here.
But here you are. So
But here we
happened?
are.
So what happened?
Because we fell in love with his project, but for the project that he was offered to come, and that was the real hook. Unfortunately, it was not the city; it was that project.
So the thing I found most interesting when you and I first met, one of the things I thought was really telling about you and about Ferran and about the way you view the city. I think for most people, they move internationally. They travel, they're clearly successful. They move to Manchester, everyone expects them to live in Cheshire. Everyone expects them to live in Hale. You know, that's where kind of everyone gravitates down to. And that's what I think people expected you to do, but you refused, didn't you?
We didn't want to do it.
You felt that you had to be literally in the city.
So we moved into the city centre straight away in 2012, and everyone was like, what are you doing? No one is living in the city centre. No, you have to go into Hale, Alderley Age, Winslow, whatever. And I was like, no, I want to be in the middle of everything. So yeah, we moved in. Everyone was thinking really like, it was probably not the best choice, but that was like the best choice for sure. And I loved every second since we decided to move in the city centre. So
well, I think the city's got better and better since 2012. So it's like your influence. The minute you moved in, it's been on an
Everyone wants to live in the city centre now,
ever
isn't it?
since. No, fantastic. And I'm right in saying that Tast was never part of the plan. You never moved to Manchester to open a Catalan restaurant.
No.
So how did that opportunity come around?
So well, when we moved here, so I decided to do a professional break because we wanted to have family. It was not happening. My husband has crazy, schedules. People, if there's any people who work in hospitality, you know how the schedules are as well. So at some point you need to meet with your husband if you want to have family. So, you know, it was important that we had some time. So I decided just to have a break and also enjoy and embrace Manchester and, you know, the experience of living abroad, which is always, you know, really good. And I could do that. So, so I did it. And then, so it worked. We have 2 kids now. And so I was quite busy for the first years in Manchester. And then when I had the second kid and I said to my husband, that's enough, I'm not having anymore, you know, that's finished, it's 2 and that's it. I think he was a bit worried, like, well, you're going to get bored now, you know, because when the kid's going to go to school, I always worked, you know, and I'm very passionate about what I do. So I think he would thought she's not going to stay in Manchester, you know, if we don't find something to do.
So it's like your 3rd child, really, the restaurant.
Absolutely. And then at that time, more Catalan people were coming to the city, to Manchester, which Manchester always have welcome, you know, people from all over the world, but there is a big Spanish community, and every time there's more people from, you know, the area of Catalonia was coming, and then they start saying, you know, how is the city? You know, they wanted to know about the city, and I was like, well, it's a great city. I genuinely love it. You know, I didn't like it that first week, and I promise I do love Manchester right now. And then they said, well, so what about the food? You know, Spanish people, we are obsessed with food. So what about the food? And that was, you know, about 2015, 2000, you know, and I was like, well, it's okay. Yeah, you know, it was a bit better.
Did you say Australasia and San Carlo? Or
I did not. I said,
well,
I just said, there's a few places, you know, it's getting better. You know, we've
Catalan.
seen. But no, there was no Catalan. But at some point, you know, they start saying, why don't we open a restaurant? I was like, no, we're not opening a restaurant. Like, you know, I know what it's like to open a restaurant. And, you know, I have 2 babies. So, and then I said, yeah, let's do it. You know, we'll support you and everything. I said, yeah, you'll support me, but you won't be there every day. And this is what you have to do if you want a business to succeed. And then at the end, I don't know, I think I had a weekday or something. And I just said yes eventually. and then we tried to find the right partners who would help, because obviously what I had clear is I didn't wanted to be involved in the operation like 7 days a week, all day, because I couldn't. That was not going with my family, because obviously I'm away from my family. So my family is 4 of us here. It's my 2 kids and my husband. So, you know, I wanted to be there for my kids.
And you didn't do things by half, though, because you partnered up with Paco Perez, who has 5 Michelin stars, 4 in Spain, I think, and 1 in Berlin as well.
Yes. So we at that moment we knew there were some really good Spanish restaurants in the city, but we felt that Spain is more than, paella and bravas. There's much more than that, and that happens everywhere in the world. I always put the example with Mexico. We think that Mexican people only eat nachos and tacos, and I'm sure they eat more than that. So, the area of Catalonia is very rich in some food, and we thought, why don't we showcase a little bit more of what's going on in Barcelona? And I think the Barcelona, vibe is really cool, and I thought it's going away a little bit. It's not as close as what I pictured as what people in Manchester thought about Spanish food. Like,
so let me ask you about that, because when you launched, I mean, I thought the fit out was beautiful, the food was fantastic. I remember you got maybe 4 or 5 reviews in the national press. They were all praising it. But did Manchester understand it straight away? Did they get Tast and what you were trying to do with Tast? That is the simple answer.
No.
So could they get their head around the difference between Catalan and Spanish, or how you were presenting the food?
I think, I always said that it would be so much easier if I know what I know now. I would do things completely different, but you can't do that. That would be too easy. So to be honest, I was so convinced, like, people are going to understand that there's much more than, as we said, paella and bravas, and then we're going to show, that the Barcelonian style is slightly different. It's modern, it's fresh, it's contemporary. It's not like the traditional oaky places, wine barrels, whatever, which is like the typical picture. This is not what you find in Barcelona. You find it in Las Ramblas for tourist people, but this is not the real thing. And I really believed, that we wanted to show this. We wanted to show a fresh space, contemporary, new. And then I think the other thing would happen is, like, we asked Paco Perez to be on board because he's a very good friend of us, not because he has 5 Michelin stars. That was never the idea, because we always wanted to create a casual space and an easy space where people didn't have to feel super overdressed. They could come easily, just to have a nibbles and a drink, or have a more proper meal, with good quality food and a very, quiet and nice surrounding, good service, and that's it, and enjoy a good moment. And then what happened, I think, for Manchester, having a chef like Paco Perez coming, it made a lot of noise. And probably our approach, from how we presented the restaurant, marketing-wise, or from the press release was not the right one. And this is where I go, I would do things differently. There was too much about Paco and the Michelin stars, and that was not the idea. So what happened, we opened first a restaurant where, scenery-wise and at the look, it was so different than any other restaurants in Manchester, where it was more, there were more blinky, I don't know how to say it, there was, and we are, I don't know if any of you have been to Tast, it's such a sober decorations, very minimalistic, and that was made in purpose because we always wanted people to focus in the table, starting with themselves. I always think the most important thing when people go to Tast is enjoying the moment with your friends, family, business partners, which I felt as a customer in other restaurants. I struggle to find a place where I could have a proper conversation with 4 people without having to shout to each other and being super exhausted at the end of the evening because you can't hear each other. So I wanted to gather people together and then have good food, and good service.
Do you know what I think has made a really big difference for the restaurant? I think in Manchester it's quite important sometimes to get the bar side working well. It's makes it accessible. People can go in for a drink, then they feel comfortable in the space and with the welcome, and they'll come back and eat. And although we don't want to look backward, and although COVID has been a horrific time for the hospitality industry, I think the outside space for you in King Street, in that beautiful setting in King Street, really kind of brought the restaurant out to people, broke down a lot of those barriers. Yeah,
absolutely. We were trying to get this outdoor space for many months, and I realized that it's not only in Spain that things go slow in the city councils, in England as well, and it was not happening, and that's definitely a good thing that COVID brought us. We always had the concept of having, because we have 3 floors, to have the bar super casual, and then this is like, that was the most difficult part, because the restaurant has always worked like brilliantly. We've been always super busy in the restaurant, but it's on the 1st floor, so it was very sad because people were passing by and saw the bar empty, thinking that's an empty place, and we were like absolutely packed upstairs, but it was like people didn't understand that that was a bar, and we didn't know how to give the message. And then I realized that in here people go to the bar to drink or to the pub to drink, and then the restaurant to eat, and having 2 concepts under the same roof like restaurant and bar was not quite going through. Plus, it's true that we've done, and we've done several transformations of our bar to finally arrive with what I think now it's the right fit. And 100% the outdoor area has helped for people to understand, hey, this is Barcelona. I always said I wanted to bring a little bit of Barcelona into the city, and I think the terrace just has given, that extra, feel.
Yeah.
And when the sun is here like this week, it's just absolutely amazing.
So when you're not in your restaurant, where else do you like to eat? Where have you found in Manchester or around Manchester that you enjoy eating?
Oof, plenty of places. The scenery has changed so much in the past, 5 years. Sometimes you have the feeling that you decide to open a restaurant because you think there's not that many options, and all of a sudden everyone opens a restaurant. And then there's so many amazing options right now in the city.
Like?
I love the area of Ancoats. Ancoats has grown. I think it's a foodie area right now. I love Oyster, the J Night. I love the vibe that's there. Having a drink is amazing. I live very close from St John Gardens, so I love Schofield Bar.
For a cocktail.
That's amazing
very
place.
What's your cocktail of choice in Schofield's?
The classic daiquiri, actually.
Can't go wrong with the daiquiri. I like a Hemingway daiquiri as well. That's a nice twist on it. But it's a fantastic thing.
So there are some really amazing additions in King Street as well, obviously with Colour, which is really good. And I don't know, every time there's more opening, it's such a vibrant city. We are very happy to be part of this community of restaurants and hospitality growing and growing. I think there's lots going on in Manchester.
So you've lived here for what, five years now? A bit longer?
I've lived here for 10 years.
10 years.
So I could say a quarter of my heart is Mancunian already.
Well,
I can guarantee.
I was going to ask you that question, whether you're starting to feel Mancunian.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Obviously, I don't know how much more we're going to stay here or not. I don't think we're going to stay here forever. I see myself at some point going back to Barcelona. I don't see this anytime soon anyway. And we love our life here. My girls love it here. They're Mancunians, obviously. I
was going to say, do they feel Catalan or do they feel Mancunian?
If you say where's home, is Manchester. Home is Manchester for them. They're 5 and 7, so they've lived here.
I was trying to think of it like a portmanteau. They'd be like Matalan, wouldn't they? Which is the department store. That doesn't quite work. So maybe you need to do it the other way around. But do they have Mancunian accents?
They do.
Excellent.
They do. Sometimes they try to, but sometimes there is some words like, "Oh my God, that sounds so Mancunian." So, but it's really fun.
And I think again, you were quite pioneering to have a family in the city, to have children in the city. It's one of the things that we hear with Manchester all the time, that we still need to do better in making it family friendly. But you've lived in so many different places all over the world. What do you think we can still do better in Manchester as someone who lives there in the city?
I think Manchester is doing many good things and it's going in the right directions. Obviously, Manchester needed more apartments and bigger apartments, because that was one of the first issues we had when we wanted to move. Because when we had then the 2 kids, we were a bit tight on space in an apartment. We were living in Spinneyfields at the time, and to find bigger spaces, it was not that easy. And I know this is changing, and it's bursting everywhere with new constructions going on. For families, obviously, I think schools would be a need to have closer by more options, and then outdoor spaces. There are, every time I know, the city is trying to get a bit more of outdoor spaces, but there's not that many outdoor spaces, kid friendly with maybe a swing or something nice. So at the end, for me as a mum with 2 young kids, every time I have to take the car and go, somewhere if I want them to go to a park, and that would be ideal to have. But I know it's difficult because Manchester is so small and doesn't have these
historic parks.
But anyway, I'm okay to in the meantime I'm okay to take the car and take them to the park, as long as we can go walking everywhere.
Well, the city will keep changing, I'm sure, and improving, and hopefully you'll be around in Manchester for a while yet, and so will Tast as well.
Yes, I hope so,
it's been here a long time, and it feels like it's kind of bedded in and really become part of the city now. I think people understand it and enjoy it. If you haven't been to Tast, I do recommend that you go along. It's a fantastic restaurant. So thank you for enriching our city, and hopefully we've enriched your lives a little bit as well. Manchester has become part of your lives. But
absolutely.
Thank you very much for your time here today. I think that's just about it. I want to keep these guys on schedule.
So thank you,
Sandra.
Thank you.